So today we'll be looking at adding and subtracting and multiplying and dividing significant figures. So the first rule, adding and subtracting, says that we have to go to the lowest decimal point in the equation. And the second rule says that when we multiply and divide significant figures, we have to go to the lowest amount of sig figs in the equation as well. So I've lumped them together since they follow the same rules in each section. First we'll start off with adding and subtracting. If we consider the number 13 plus 12, 3 plus 2 is 5, and 1 plus 1 is 2, so we get 25. However, if we want to know how many sig figs 25 will have, then we have to consider the decimal points in the equation, since we're using the adding and subtracting rule. So this comes down to how many numbers are behind the decimal points in each number used to get the product of 25. So this will be 13 and 12. In the case of 13, the decimal point is behind the 3, and we have no further numbers behind it, so we can determine that there's 0 numbers behind 13. And we also have the same situation with 12 since the decimal point is behind the 2. And hence we have 0 numbers behind the 2. That leaves us with 25, and we know that we have to have 0 since that's the lowest amount in the equation as a whole. So if we have the decimal point over here, then we know that there's 0 numbers behind the 5, and that leaves us with a complete equation. So we have to do no changes in this case. However, if we consider another example, let's say the number 313 minus 1.2. In this case, the 2 will remain. 3 minus 1 is 2. 1 minus 0 is 1. And 3 minus 0 is also 3. In this case, we have 312.2. However, if we want to know how many significant figures 312.2 will have, then we have to look at 313 and 1.2. So 313 has 0 numbers behind its decimal points, and 1.2 has 1 number, which is a 2. In that case, we know we have to go to the lowest, so between 0 and 1, the lowest number is 0. So we have to round the 312.2 down to 312, which gives us our final answer. Now, if we look at the multiplying and dividing rule, it states that we have to go to the lowest amount of sig figs in the equation. Sig figs is just an abbreviation of significant figures. And if you guys are unaware of what significant figures is, then I recommend that you go watch our previous video before coming back. So for example, if we get the number 112.1 times 2, then we would get 224.2. In that case, we have to determine how many sig figs this number will have. And to do that, we have to look at the amount of significant figures, not to be confused with decimal points from adding and subtracting. So, the rules state that all non-zeros are significant figures. In that case, 1 is not 0, so it counts as a significant figures, and 2 is also not a 0, so it also counts. Same again here, down with the 2. In that case, we can determine that in 112.1 that there are 4 significant figures, and in 2 there is only 1 significant figure. In that case, we have to go to the lowest amount, which is obviously the 1. So we have to round 224.2 into its lowest form with only 1 significant figure. To do that, we can either go down to 200, which only has 1 significant figure since the following zeros don't count. Now, if we move on to our last and final example, and we have the numbers 12 divided by 6.0, then we would get 2. However, to determine the amount of significant figures in the number 2, then we have to determine how many significant figures are in 12 and 6.0. So, non-zeros are significant figures. So 1 counts, and 2 does as well. So we know that we have 2 in the number 12. And in 6.0, then we have 1 for the 6 for sure, and all subsequent zeros past the decimal point also count. So, the 0 in this case would also count. So we have 2 again. In that case, both numbers are equal to each other, and we have to settle for the lowest, which is 2, since it's the only available option. And our answer does not meet the criteria, so we have to shift it to 2.0. The value remains, but we have 1 more significant figure through the 0. I hope this video has helped you understand the rules of adding and subtracting and multiplying and dividing significant figures. That is all. Thank you for watching.